Good morning, everyone. Shall we begin the session? Okay. In the last class, we have finished with the chapter number 3. What is a software? What are the types of software? Can anyone tell me what are the various types of software that we have discussed? Yeah, very good. One is application software, one is system software. Right. Now, my next question is operating system lies in which category? Either application software or system software. In which category operating system lies? Okay, so first of all, yeah, what is the difference between the application software and the system software? Yes, that is designed for a particular task. Very good point. And system software is common to each and everyone. That is, we can say, operating at the same time each and every user. So now think, what is operating system? For example, Windows. You are also using Windows. I am also using Windows. Everyone have a same interface. Everything is same. So which software has the same facility? That is a system software. All right. So operating system is a part of the system software. Yes. Now, yeah, there are multiple utility software also that are also category of the software, but that does not lie in the operating system. The main concern is the operating system, how operating system is used, and what is the main logic, what is the main motto behind the operating system. Now, any doubts anywhere in the chapter number 3? What are the operating systems? Why we are using the operating system? Yes, nowadays nowadays Windows 10 is the latest operating system that is used in the day-to-day scenario. Windows 10. One of the one of the main facility uniqueness of the Windows 10 is that there are two desktop. At the same time, we can use the two desktop, but we are not using the two desktop in the Windows 8, Windows 7, nothing. Okay, so let's move to the next chapter, chapter number 4, data in the database. Now, we are finished with the hardware, we are finished with the input devices. Now, next move to the next part, that is what are the various data in the database systems. That means how we can store the data in the computer, how we can store the data in the tables, how we can store the tables in the databases. All right, wait for others. Yeah, Joseph. Okay. Now let's start with the session. First of all, see what are the various learning objectives for this chapter. First one is describe the difference between the data, information, and the knowledge. What is the main difference between the data that we are using, information, and the knowledge? Then define the term database and identify the steps to creating one. That is, what is the meaning of the database and what are the various steps to create the database? So first of all, what is the difference between the data, information, and the knowledge? Then what is the database and what are the various steps? That is, identify the steps to create a database. Then describe the role of a database management system. Once we have once we have defined the database, next step is to define or describe the role of a database management system. What is the role of DBMS? Then describe the characteristics of a data warehouse. What is the main characteristics of the data warehouse? Why we are using the data warehouse? What is the role of data warehouse? Then define the data mining and describe its role in an organization. What is the data mining? What is the role in the organization that is carried out with the data mining? Now, we have already been introduced, or introduction is that is what are the various two components of an information system. One is the hardware, one is the software. However, those two components by themselves do not make a computer useful. Imagine if you had turned on a computer, started the word processor, but you could not save a document that is opened with a music player, that is used with opening a music player. So whenever we are opening a web browser, there were no web pages. Without data, without hardware, that is very So the main concern is that without any data, hardware and the software are not very useful, are not very relevant. So data is one of the third important component of information system. So now let's see what is the difference between the data, information and the knowledge. Now, what is the data? That is the raw bits, or we can say the raw facts, or the pieces of the information with no context. If I told you 1523 1485, you would have seen or learned anything, but I have given you data. Data may be a quantitative or qualitative. What is the quantitative data? That is a numeric and the result of a measurement count or some mathematical calculation. Qualitative is descriptive. So one is a quantitative, quantity will be described. One is a qualitative, quality will be described, that is a descriptive. Now, what is the quality? For example, this is the ruby red, the color of a 2003 Ford Focus is an example of qualitative data. A number can be used as a qualitative too. If I tell you my favorite number is a 5, that is a qualitative data, that is descriptive, not the result of the measurement. So that may be a qualitative, that may be quantitative, that may be used with the numeric, that may be used with the result, whatever. The main concern is that one of the main element is the data that is used in the day-to-day life. Now, by itself, the data is not that useful. To be useful, it needs to be given context. That means it needs to be given in a context. Now, returning to the example above, if I told you that there are numbers 15, 23, 14, and 85 are the number of a student that have registered for upcoming classes, that would be the information. By adding the context, the number represents the count of the students registering for the specific classes. I've converted the data into the information. And once we put up our data into the context, aggregate it and analyze it, we can use it to make the decision for our organizations. And we can also say that this consumption of the information produces the energy, produces the knowledge. So whatever the information that we are gaining out, that we are consuming, that provides the energy, or that produces the energy in our mind. This knowledge, that produces the knowledge as well as energy, and this knowledge can be used to make the decision, set policies, and even spark the innovations. So first step is that we have to put our data into the context, then aggregate and analyze it. We can use it to make the decisions for our organization. Therefore, we can say that this consumption of the information also produces the knowledge, and this knowledge can be used to make the decisions, set policies, and even the spark the innovations. And the final setup in the information ladder is a step from the knowledge, that is knowing a lot about a topic, to the wisdom. We can say that someone has a wisdom when they can combine their knowledge and experience to provide a deeper understanding of a topic. So whenever they have a good knowledge, good understanding of the topic, they provide a deeper understanding of topic about the knowledge. It often takes many years to develop wisdom on a particular topic and requires the patience. It takes a lot of time to develop the wisdom on a particular topic. That means anyone can expertise on a topic by taking the time, and also requires the patience. First one is the wisdom, the knowledge, information, data. So data, then information, then knowledge, then wisdom. Now, what are the various examples of the data? So almost all the software programs require the data to do anything useful. For example, if you are editing information, or if you are editing a document in a word processor, such as MS Word, the document you are working on the data. So whatever the document you are working, that is the data. And the word processing software can manipulate the data, creates a new document, duplicate a document, or modify a document. So whenever we are using the MS Word, that is a word processing software that can manipulate the data. How we can manipulate the data? How to create a new document? Yeah, how to make the duplication of the documents? How to modify a document? And some other examples of the data are the MP3 music files, video file, spreadsheet, web pages, and the ebook. So these are the few examples of the data. And in some cases, such as with the ebook, you may also have you may only have ability to read the data. So there are 4 steps, there are 4 parts: one is the data, information, knowledge, and the wisdom. Now, any doubts till here? Because we are finished with the data. Now we are moving to the what is the database? That is the next concept. So any doubts, anyone in the databases? Yeah, there are four parts. There are four parts. We can say that it's not related with each other, but they have a relationship in terms of the human psychology. One is the data, one is the information, one is the knowledge, one is the wisdom. Just do one thing, read out this one. If there is any doubt, you can ask the doubts. Okay. Now, any doubts, anyone in the data, example of data, what is the difference between data, information, knowledge, and the wisdom? Any doubts, anyone? No. Let's move to the next part, that is the databases. So the goal of many information system, whatever the information system that is available, so the main goal, main target is to transform the data into information in order to generate the knowledge that can be used for decision making. So whenever we are using the information system, so main aim of the information system is to transform the data into the information. So whatever the data that is available in the information system, the main goal is to transform data into the information in order to generate the knowledge that can be used for the decision making. So anyone can use the data for the database management system in order to gain the knowledge. Yes, the main target is to convert it to transform the data into the information in order to generate the knowledge that can be used for decision making. In order to do this, the system must be able to take input, put the data into the context, and provide the tools for aggregation and the analysis. Whatever the tool that is carried out, whatever the data that is carried out, that means putting the data in the context and provides the data for the aggregation and the analysis. Our database is designed for just such a purpose. So database designed for such a purpose, and the database is an organized collection of the related information. Organized collection means a proper collection of the related information. It is an organized collection because in the database, all the data is described and associated with other data also. And whatever the information that is used in database, that should be related as well with the information with the data. And there's a separate databases that should be created to manage unrelated information. For example, a database that contains information about the student should not hold information about the company stock prices, because that takes the data about the student, not the company stock prices. So databases are always digital, that is filing the cabinet, for example, might be considered a form of the database. For the purpose of this context, we will consider only the digital databases, whatever the digital database that we are using. The main goal of information system is to transform the data into the information. Next one is a relational database. One is the database, one of the category of the database, the relational database that can be organized in different ways and may take many forms. So one of the important database that is used nowadays is a relational database. For example, one of the best example of the relational databases are the Microsoft Access, MySQL, and the Oracle. An relational database is one in which the data is organized into one or more tables. We are preparing the one or more tables for the relational databases, and each table has a set of the fields which defines the nature of the data stored in the table. And whenever we are taking the record, that is a one instance of the set of the fields. And to visualize this, think of the records as a row of the table and the fields as a column of the table. So there are two things, one is the rows and the columns. So rows are taken out as the records and the fields taken out as the columns. So when you talk about the rows of a table, that means records of the table. When you talk about the columns of a table, that means the fields of the table. In the example that is given above, there is the student information that have each row containing a student and each column representing one piece of information about the student. That may be a last name, that may be first name, that may be a major, that may be a birth date. There's a record rows, that is the rows and columns in a table, that is the fields. And in a relational database, all the tables are related by one or more fields, so that it is possible to connect all the tables in a database to the fields that they have in a common. For each of the table, one of the field is identified as a primary key. That means one of the field is taken out as a primary key, and this key is a unique identifier for each record in a table. So we are taking the records that is taken out as a primary key, that is a unique identifier for each of the record. And to help you understand these terms further, let's talk about also the process of designing a database. That is how to design a database. What are the various concepts that is used in designing a database? So rows are denoted by the records and the fields are denoted by the columns. Now, how to design a database? That is the next concern. Suppose a university wants to create an information system to take participation in the students' club. After interviewing the several people or multiple people, the design must be or design team learns that the goal of implementing the system is to give better insight. So main goal is to give or main goal is to find out the better insight that our university or into how the university finds the club. This will be accomplished by tracking how many members each club has and what are the various active clubs that is using. And from this, the team decides that the system must keep track of the clubs, their members, and their events. And using this information, the design team determines the following table that need to be created out. What are the three teams or what are the ways the design team that is determined? The first one is the clubs that will track the club name, club president, and the short description of the club. First is the clubs that will include the club name, club president, and the short description of the club. Then next is the students that include the student name, email, and the year of the birth. Then membership. This table will correlate the students with the clubs, allowing us to have any given information that joins the multiple clubs. Then events. So this table will track when the club meets and how many students will show up. That is the events. So one is a club, then student, then membership, then events. Now that the design team has been determined which table to create, they need to define the specific information that each table will hold. That means whatever the information that is available in that table, that must be divided into two parts. One part is a rows and one part is a column. So and this requires identifying the fields, that means identifying the column that will be in the each table. For example, the club name would be one of the fields in the club table. The first name and the last name would be the field in the student table. Club name would be the field of the clubs table, and the first name and the last name will be the field of the student table. And finally, since this will be a relational database, every table should have a field in common with at least one other table. That means they have a common field with one another table. In other words, they have a relationship with each other. So clubs table and the student table have a relationship with each other. And in order to properly create this relationship, a primary key must be selected for each table. Now this key is a unique identifier for each record in the table. For example, in the student table, it might be possible to use students' detail last name as a way to uniquely identifying them. However, it is not likely that some students will share a last name, for example, Rodriguez, Smith, or Lee, so a different field would be or should be selected. Then a student's email address might be a good source for the primary key since email addresses are unique. And primary key cannot change. That means that we cannot change the primary key. That would mean if the student change their email address, we have to remove them from the database and then reinsert them. Not an attractive proposition. One solution is to create a value for each student. That means we are fetching the one of the field as a primary key. Why? Because we have to take out that primary key that is unique for each and every student. For example, if I'm talking about the roll numbers of a student in the class that have a unique for each and every student. If I want to, if I want to get the marks of roll number 4, the roll number 4 is unique. So Ankit, for example, roll number 4 have a marks 88. So that is Ankit marks, not the Rohan marks. In the same way, if I'm talking about the industry, every employee gets a unique ID that is known as the employee ID. So our solution is to create a value for each of the student, that is a user ID that will act as a primary key. Now we will also do this for each of the student club. The solution is quite common, and the reason that is you have many user IDs. Now this is one of the example that the final database design that is shown over here. One is the events. Events contain multiple IDs. The event ID, club ID, event name, date, and the attendance. Then club ID. Now this ID, club ID is related with the clubs also, memberships also, student also. And all these are related with one another with the primary key. Now event ID is a primary key, club ID is a primary key, student ID is a primary key, and the ID is also a primary key. That means each and every field, each and every table is related with each other. That's why it is known as a collection of the tables. So that becomes that becomes a database. And with this design, not only to do, we have to organize all of the information. We need to meet the requirements. We have specifically related all the tables together. Here, what the databases table might look like with some simple data that is available, and the membership table have a sole purpose of allowing us to relate the multiple students to multiple clubs. This is the club ID, then club name, cheese club, chess club, archery club. Then president is 14, 1/6. Now description is to talk about the our love of the cheese, how to become the better chess players, then to compete in the archery tournaments. This is the table clubs. In the same way, table student that have ID, that have a first name, that have a last name, that have an email ID, that have a year of birth. So these are the few points that is used with the table student. First field is the ID, that is a unique ID, then first name, last name, email address, and the year of the birth. The next one is the table membership. Next table is a membership table that have a club ID and the student ID. Then events that have a club ID, event name and date and the attendance. These are the few tables that is related with each other with their primary keys, and that must be unique for each and every concepts. Unique in the sense we cannot use the club ID with the next ID, that must be taken out. So that must be unique for each and every user, for each and every concept. Now, if I see the table, there's the ID of the 1, 2, 3, 6. Not that must be in a sequence. No, ID is unique. So one have Peter have a 1 ID, numeric 1. Then Jonathan has a 2, Madeline has a 3, Haley has a 12, David has a 15. So these are the IDs for the students. This is a unique ID. Next column is the email ID of the students, then year of the birth. Then next one is a club ID on the student ID. There are two concepts that is given. What is a club have a sequence. That means there is no uniqueness in the club ID because 1, 2, 3 is also already the unique. Yeah. So there are four tables that is available. One is the club, one is the student, one is the membership, and one is the event. So there are four tables. Four tables are used in database or are clubbed together related with each other with the concept of the database. That's why this concept is known as a database. That has the sole purpose of allowing us to relate the multiple students to the multiple clubs. Next one is the normalization. Data types. What are the various data types that is used in the normalizations? So normalization is nothing but creating the picture. So we are saying that means adjusting the pictures or adjusting the tables in such a way that there is no duplicate data that is available in the table. But this I'm not going to start right now because normalization is a very big topic that I'm going to start in the next class, that is in the tomorrow's class. Now, if there is any doubts, anyone any doubts in the class regarding the data, database, what is the primary key, how it is used? Anyone, any doubts? If there is any doubts, you can chat the doubts with me or you can talk with me right now.